Watch feverish competition tonight as professional chefs face off to win your palate in the Iron Chef at 8:30. We then present a film that centres around a group of friends who learn the lessons of love and romance. Sexy Boys, 10 o'clock tonight.
The only reason I'm in the zoo is because I'd started doing this work on this architect, and because he designed the zoo, and they were actually just starting to reconstruct it. They needed someone who could act as a sort of an expert or a heritage consultant on that. And as the reconstruction sort of started to go on, the rest of the architects didn't do a really good job of it, so I ended up sort of moving from being heritage consultant to actually being the main chief architect for the zoo.
Welcome to Budapest. In this program we meet a former Queensland palm seed collector who's now one of Hungary's most acclaimed architects. And to get around we ride the world's second oldest metro system.
It's important that he comes from the tropical part of Queensland. At first it was difficult for him to understand what winter is and snow and insulation for houses. He had to learn all that because it's different. But the point of view, the openness of houses, the materials is all in his head, and I think it adds to his work here. So he's not designing houses like Hungarian architects do.
If you asked me, let's say 10 years ago, or if you told me that somebody comes from Australia and he is the chief researcher of Károly Korsz works, well, I wouldn't believe you.
I've lived here for 14 years, so I almost lived here as long as I lived in Mackay. And as time goes on, those few years in between start to seem to go together.
I mean, it does sound preposterous that someone from Australia or Mackay comes here and decides to live here and practice architecture. But I mean, I think Budapest is quite amenable, I think, to people, outside influences, basically.
It is the quickest possible mode of transport in a big city like Budapest.
Anthony!
Oh, g'day, Richard.
How are you?
Yeah, good to see you.
Yeah, good to meet you too. How's it going?
Yeah, this is Mitzi.
Oh, Mitzi! This is the famous Mitzi.
Yeah, that's right.
Mitzi from Brisbane RSPCA.
That's the one.
Ah, excellent.
Come in.
Yeah, cheers, thanks very much. Mackay in North Queensland seems a long way from Budapest in every respect, but not for architect and author Anthony Gall, who grew up in the tropics but now lives and practices in the Hungarian capital. In the late 1980s, Anthony was awarded a scholarship to study art in Budapest after having completed the first part of an architecture degree in Brisbane. He met and married his Hungarian wife Cecilia and the pair eventually went back to Australia to enable Anthony to complete architecture. Cecilia became fascinated by Australian literature and completed a degree at the University of Queensland. She's now teaching Australian cultural studies at a university in Budapest, where Anthony has become an acclaimed architect and author of the definitive work about Kós Károly, one of Hungary's great architects and folk heroes. It may all sound a bit confusing, but put it this way, Anthony and Cecilia have shown an extraordinary commitment to each other's countries and to each other. They have 2 daughters, Esther and Emma, and a cat called Mitzi, who was salvaged from the RSPCA in Brisbane and now lives with the family in Budapest.
There's a big architectural conference every year.
Kós Károly? Is it my pronunciation?
Kós Károly. Yeah, you have another couple of days here, you probably get it right. Yeah.
So how did you discover his work and what grabbed you?
It grabbed me slowly, this sort of stuff, because when I was over here, you knew you had to go back and finish your degree. You had to go back and finish your study. But I'd been married by that time, and you sort of thought, well, I'd like to go back, but I'd like to do something that helps me learn more about Hungary and something that might help me when I start to come back. And sort of, because people in Hungary love this person, he's very important. He's a really big national hero because he's, in addition to being an architect, he's been a concerned architect who's been very connected with the people of the region he lived in. And he was also a writer and did lots of other things, so he's sort of like a folk hero as well. Sort of like a mix between Walter Burley Griffin and Ned Kelly, something like that. And if you can sort of imagine that, because people have always been so helpful to me here, they've been trying to teach me about what it is to become Hungarian or what there is about Hungarian culture that's important. They've always bought books for me, on little books on this fellow, or taken me to exhibition or shown me buildings by him. Sort of got a feeling for Transylvania, which is where this architect lived, because it used to be part of Hungary. And they showed me some of his buildings over there as well. So by the time I had made the decision I was going to go back and keep studying, I had this whole collection of sorts of things that were connected to this architect. And it just sort of, one day you sort of just woke up and you knew you were going to write a thesis on him or something like that.